welcome to today's webinar, SDL Tridion Sites 9 Predefined Regions. My name is Christina, I will be your host. With the upcoming release of SDL Tridion Sites 9, this webinar is fourth in the series of 5 webinars to introduce new features and concepts, and also help you gain the maximum benefit of the new version. Your speaker today is Anton Minko, Software Development for SDL Tridion Sites. We expect today's webinar will last about 45 minutes, followed by the Q&A session. If you have any questions throughout the webinar, please pop it into the Q&A box, and we will follow up at the end of the webinar. I will now pass it over to Anton to begin the presentation.
Hello, everyone. Let's start. I'm the product owner of the SDL Tridion sites, and today I want to talk about predefined regions. It is a somewhat new, somewhat old concept of the Tridion that allows you to group components, component presentations on the page. So we'll talk about what exactly we bring into the Sites 9 release. What is a regions and what is a predefined regions. We'll talk about region schemas and how we reorganize it, the way how page editors will create and manage their pages. We also talk about a little bit about templating, so how to use regions and content in the region in the modular templating on the for rendering on the CM side, and also I'll briefly show how the new DXA 2.1 will look like. That will also benefit from the regions. Okay, so let's start with the problem that we want to solve with this region concept. So when page editor wants to create a new page, it all starts with a blank page, and there is no guidance for the editor on what is expected on the page. So depending on the page template that was chosen, page editor should know some bespoke information on what is expected on this page by the template. So yeah, it is error prone. It is not well supported in the product because page template is defined by implementer, one person, and then it is used by editors, and they need to share information on what is expected somehow. So that's problem number one. And then when the page is populated, so there is also a usability issue. So usually page is not a flat list of component presentations. They are somehow grouped. There is usually some header, footer, some promotion content, some maybe lists of available products, and so on. And in the current UI, we do the flat list of all the component presentations, and this list is not sorted automatically. So obviously, editors can sort them somehow and use component template information to also guess that, for example, welcome message that using a hero component template probably belongs somehow to component related success. But yeah, again, it's not the ideal representation, and we do not want our users to spend their time and energy on shuffling around a long list of component presentations. And yeah, as in this example, this list corresponds to the page from the left, and that's how each and every component presentation is rendered. So in the nutshell, with the pages that have a lot of component presentations on them, we want to go from something like this to something like that. When each and every component presentation has its place, and its place is predefined so that editors know where to put what. So getting to the solution, here is on the right we see the same representation of the same page from the left in the Sites 9 UI. So as you can see, all component presentations are grouped into regions, and also we hide from this list component templates to dedicate more space to component names. And in general, I will show this more, that the component templates are a bit less important in the new UI. So here you can easily map one region and component presentations into this region to areas on the page. Yeah, so there are 4 main regions, and also we allow to do so-called nested regions. So as you can see here, one region contains 2 nested regions, and that's also can be defined in the Sites 9. And that was a solution for problem number 2 with a page with a lot of component presentations. And now let's get back to the problem number 1, that editor, when creates a new page, starts with a blank page. So a solution for this issue is a so-called predefined regions. So whenever user choose a page template, there is associated information on what regions are expected on this page template, and some restrictions on what kind of component presentations can go into each region. So system knows this information so that we can, whenever user click on a new page, we can already pre-generate regions, so that user starts not with an empty page, but with some placeholders that need to be filled in. So it gives us the guidance for page editors, but also it gives some built-in validation, so that we can ensure that page that uses specific page template have expected component presentations. Yeah, so before going to the next slide, let me actually quickly show this in action. Sorry. So here I'm creating a new page, and the default page template, content page, it has associated schema. So when I go here on the design tab, that is a new tab that is replacing component presentations tab. I have already 2 regions generated for me, and yeah, for example, when I can also change, of course, page template, and when I do this, there is a warning that because regions will be regenerated, component presentations might be lost. But when I do this again and go to the design tab, the new set of regions will be generated for me, driven by the page template that I've chosen. And yeah, there is also some helping information that I will explain more during this presentation. Okay, so again, going back to theory, so what is a region in Sites9? It is a container for the page, for the content on the page. So for it can consist of course, name, so that we can distinguish one region from another. There is also so-called fully qualified name. It is for the case when you have one region nested to another region to another region. So there is the names of each region in a path combine it into fully qualified name, and it is it can be used, for example, in the templating to access that region. Region also has a schema. There is a new subtype of region schema, and of course it has 0, 1 or more component presentations, and also each region might contain nested regions. So it is a tree structure. And last but not least, each region may have associated metadata. So it is important that for each region we might define additional metadata that can be used, for example, during rendering, or even pass it to the UDP side, to the content delivery side, and used there. I will demonstrate an example of this in the DXA. Okay, so this again, this is the new design tab. So as I said, the component presentations tab is replaced with the design tab, which have somewhat similar but a bit different structure. So on the left side, instead of flat list, we have a tree with the regions and nested regions and components. And when you click a region, we have support information. So again, it is a help for the page editor on what is expected in the region. So in this example, you can see that the main region is expected to have one component presentation, and this component presentation must use component based on the article schema, and it must use article component template. There is no way to add more component presentations, or to add component presentations based on different schemas, or using different component templates. It is ensured by the system that the expected type of component presentation will be created. As I said, there is also metadata may be defined to associated with this main region, and there are also some controls to add or remove component presentations, to move up, move down component presentations and regions, and also we have the possibility to move component presentations from one region to another. Okay, so again, go back to real UI. So as I said, depending on the selected region, this information is changed. So the hero region can contain any number of component presentations, but all of them must be based on the carousel component template. Article, one component presentation with article component template and either one or another schema. And there is also a multi-column region which doesn't have any constraints, but there is some metadata associated with it. So when I add when I add a component, you see the good old UI for the component presentation. So here you can see what component is used, go to edit it, or potentially choose another component template, but in this case there is only one component template allowed, so you cannot really change it. And there are also target groups, and in case of page type, if this page would be page type, there will be a assert tab that defines what to do with this component on creating a page based on this page types. Okay, move on. Here's I included a code snippet on how to create a page using CoreService API. Again, just for you to have a sneak preview on how will it look like. So previously, all component presentations had to be added into page.component presentations list, which is still available, but now we have regions. So we expect that the flow will be that you define a page, you define the region instance, and then the region itself, it has a title, it has a list of component presentations, it may have metadata, it may have also defined nested regions. So it will be like region.nested regions and then array of nested regions. And then in the end, you compose the list of regions on the page by defining this region list. So next topic of this webinar is region schema. So it is a new subtype of the schema that is available as of Sites 9, and it defines so-called constraints. So that's what you've seen in the page UI. So in the region schema, you can define how many component presentations this region may contain, and what kind of component presentations can be added. It also defines nested regions. Again, this list may be empty, maybe or may contain one or more nested regions. There is also a separate tab for metadata. Now again, let's review the same on the in the real UI, so that you have better understanding on how does it look like. I hope my demo machine is still working. Okay, it is a bit slow. So there is a new region schema subtype. So when you click it on the design tab, there is a new UI for defining constraints. So You can leave the default values, and region can contain any number of component presentations, but you also can define some upper limit. There is also an interesting case with empty regions. So you may define, for example, a container region that contains one or more subregions, but you don't want this container region itself contain component presentations. In this case, you should tick this checkbox, and system will ensure that no component presentations can be inserted into this region. Type constraints. Yeah, so page template implementer can define one or more constraints on the component presentations that can be inserted here. So in the first list we show all available component and multimedia schemas, and on the list on the right there are all component templates available in the system. However, when you choose one, you can leave it as is. So in this case, I define that region can contain component presentations with a component template article and with a component based on any schema that article component template can render. There is also another case when I restrict schemas, but I can leave component templates, all component templates allowed. It means that when page editor will choose a component based on the article schema, all these component templates will be available. So the component templates that can render article schema. And there is also a third case when you can restrict both of them, so that only component presentations with article schema and article component template can be used. And as you can see, you can define multiple of those and yeah, mix and match them. Okay. Yeah, I think before move deep dive into the some other properties of the region schemas, let's take a look on how to use them. So we link region schema with a page template. So the important thing to realize here is that page itself is also a region, so that it has a region schema, and this schema defines, for example, what kind of content can be added directly on the page. So not on the nested regions, but directly on the page. Or you can, again, disable adding component presentations on the page, as I just showed. Yeah, and link happens in the page template. So if I go and try to create a new page template, there is a new property. We call it page schema, but technically speaking, it is a region schema, because again, page is a region. So there is a list of all available region schemas, and yeah, when you choose one and then save this page template, then component, then pages based on this page template will use this schema. So that's how linking happens. Another thing is pages have page metadata schema. So it is existing concept, so that directly on the page you can so assume I don't have a page schema. It is as it was in Web 8, for example. So there is a property for metadata schema, and page creator can choose one and then fill some metadata properties. The issue with that approach is that it is responsibility of the page editor to choose to not forget in the first place to choose metadata schema and then choose correct metadata schema and then fill in all the properties, and there is no way to enforce this behavior or validate that the correct metadata is used. So, and that was kind of an issue for a page template implementer, because yeah, there is no way to guarantee that expected metadata fields will be present on the page. With Sites 9, the concept of metadata schema is still present for backwards compatibility, but it is obsolete. So whenever you choose a page template with page schema, there is a checkbox which is ticked for by default for new pages that metadata should be driven from or taken from the region schema. So again, here on the metadata design, you define your metadata fields, and then they will be used on the page automatically. And as you can see, we show in the metadata schema field it is disabled, and it is shown the same shows the same region schema to emphasize that metadata is taken from the region schema. Okay, yeah, so that's what I just explained. Again, for backward compatibility, you can even on the pages that use region schemas, you can untick this checkbox and choose another metadata schema. That's perfectly fine, although not recommended. So I already explained how constraints work. So there are, at the moment, there are two types of constraints: occurrence constraint, which allow you to restrict the maximum number of component presentations on the page, or completely disable component presentations in a particular region. And there is also so-called type constraints that allow you to restrict schemas and component templates for component presentations in a particular region. And you can mix and match them. This UI I already demonstrated, and yeah, this nested regions UI. So again, region may optionally contain nested regions, and in order to create them or define them in the region schema, you need to add nested region, give it a name, and then choose a schema. So it can be, yeah, I don't know, like this. And also here for information purposes, we show some constraints that are defined in this schema. Again, so it may be one or more nested regions. You can add, remove them, or change order of them. And each of these nested region may contain in itself other nested regions defined. So by doing this, you actually can define multi-level nested regions. Okay, moving on. I just demonstrated it. Next topic I want to demonstrate is actually some usability improvements. So we collected some feedback on around page creation and editing the pages, and we wanted to make the process of defining a page as smooth as and simple and error-proof as possible. So we implemented quite some improvements. One will be that whenever a user click on the component in the Add Component Presentation pop-up, so all of these improvements, they are for a page. So when you add a component presentation on the page or in a particular region. So here I have multimedia component, and there is only one component template available. So system automatically selected this component template so that I don't need to do another 2 extra click to open this drop down and choose the only available option. So it was one of the requests from the community that we finally implemented. Another thing is that as of Sites 9, the double click works here too. You can double click to add component presentations if the component template has chosen. And as you can see here, there is no type constraints. So this functionality will work even on pages without region schemas and regions. So on existing pages, if only one component template is associated with a particular component, yeah, then this functionality will work. When region defines that only a specific type of component template can be used in this region, that also information is used in this dialog. So, so when I click on a component, component template is automatically chosen. So there are actually many component templates that can render components based on article schema, but just because there is a constraint saying that only article component template can be used, we choose it and we restrict it in this list. Another thing that we implemented is that region constraints are applied to this dialog, and if a schema is restricted, then we can actually disable, so make a grayed out components that cannot be inserted into a particular region. So again, yeah, so here actually that's what you can see here. This region allows only news article and article schemas. So only components based on the schemas can be inserted, and those that are grayed out, they yeah. So if you click on them, you can see a warning that explains why you cannot insert this. And we also have this occurrence constraint. So as you remember, or as you can see here, that article region can contain only one component presentation. So whenever I add component presentation into this region, all of the components became grayed out, And now the warning says that the maximum allowed number reached, so that I cannot add more component presentations here. And the third case that we implemented is that this add component presentation pop-up, it is context aware, so it knows what regions you're inserting component presentations into. So whenever you change context region, the constraints will immediately apply to the pop-up. So let me show how it works. Yeah, so here I opened them two windows side by side, and you see when I change the context region, availability of the components is changed here. So the hero region allows any number of components based on the carousel component template, and I didn't prepare this. I think this one, yeah. So this one you can insert yeah, so multiple items can be inserted. But again, when I change context region, this pop-up, these items become disabled, and when I change it again, I can quickly populate. Oops. I can quickly populate all the regions without having open and close this window, so that I don't need to close at component presentation pop-up. So we hope that this will be useful to editors that need to create many pages and insert many component presentations into these pages. So that may be that may save quite some clicks and speed up the process. And as I said, there is also possibility to move component presentations from one region to another. And the way how to do this is to so you can copy or cut a component presentation, change the context region, and then paste it into another one. This feature is particularly useful for migration scenarios. So imagine that you have a page created in Web 8, for example, that doesn't have regions defined, but all the component presentations, they are just on the page itself. So what you can do is to change page template. So now I choose the page template that does the same work as the previous page template, but it has region schema defined. And then when I click on the design tab, as you can see, the predefined regions have been generated for me, and component presentations that have been on the page, they stay there. So now I can do like this. Oops, no. You see constraints are also applied here. So I can also do keyboard shortcuts to quickly move component presentations into respective regions. So that's how you can start using regions in the existing implementation and on existing pages. So define region schema for existing page template, and then regions will be created for new pages, but for existing pages you can open and move items to corresponding regions. So this is a way how to start using regions or start benefiting from regions in the existing implementations. Let's quickly look into XPM. How does it look like? So we reworked the breadcrumb a bit to better support regions. So here I have a homepage for DXA, and yeah, in the breadcrumbs there is a path that includes regions, but what's also important that this arrow button, it becomes clickable, so that you can navigate through regions, nested region structure, and select regions that you want to work with. It is specifically useful when a region is empty, then it is usually not rendered, or it is rendered as a 0 pixel line. So in this case, using breadcrumb, you still can select this region and then insert something into region, because this insert pane, it now is also region aware, so that when you insert something, it will insert this content into the current region. So not on the page itself, but in the current region. I just explained it. Yeah, so the two ways to populate a region is one is a drag and drop, as it always had, but also from a library pane, the insert button will insert content not on the page but in the selected region. Page types are also region aware, so you can use regions on the page types, and component presentations into these regions can be configured to be reused or copied on creation. There are a little bit of usability enhancements that we also built in. One is that library pane stays open, so that one was particularly nasty, because whenever you click on insert button or drag and drop component presentation component into a page, we used to close this insert button, and that does not happen anymore. And another one is that we simplified multi-selection, so it doesn't require you to do some fancy control clicks and then some complex stuff. I will not insert it here because my apologies, this is a development build, and the update preview is not working on this build, so that will be obviously fully working, properly working closer to the release. But that's how it works. So with a simple left click on these round buttons, you can select or deselect items. And yeah, I want to use this opportunity to promote community ideas website. So as of site 9, we try to listen more to community and to users of our product, and we already implemented quite some improvements, such as automatic component template selection or double click to insert component presentations, or like this one to simplify multi-selection in the XPM. And we're looking for more ideas that will be feasible to implement in the upcoming release. So please, if you have some improvement ideas or some pain points, please share them on these ideas, vote, discuss other people's ideas, and product management is carefully looking into this list, and we're considering these ideas as a high priority request. So there is a good chance that they will be implemented in the new versions of the product. The next topic is templating, a bit more technical one. So whenever you render a page, you need to access component presentations on this page, and previously again it was a simple flat list, and it was extract components from page template building block that created a variable with a list of all component presentations. Now there is a second template building block called extract components from regions, and it defines two things. One is a collection of all the region names, and on the name here I mean fully qualified names. So for nested regions there will be this slashes, so fully defined name, and also a separate variable for each region that defines all the component presentations in this particular region. So that's how it looks like. It is from the template builder. You can see the first variable as page regions, and it has two strings. So it says that there is a parent region, and also this parent region contains a child region. And for each of these regions, there are also separate variables defined that contain a list of component presentations in each region. So in case if you're using Dreaweaver templating, this markup that shows how to render component presentations, all component presentations in a particular region. So you need to write this template repeat block, name the region. So this parent child, it should correspond to this variable name. So the for a proper rendering, it actually should be here parent region slash child region. And then we also extended a bit markup for Experience Manager. So in order to generate proper drop zones in the in XPM, and in order to generate this breadcrumbs, XPM relies on this markup called start region. And previously it had a title property and optional, like min occurs, max occurs, some notion of constraints. For a new region, the only the only required property is a path. So path is a fully qualified name. So here I have an example with white spaces, so it can actually contain whatever you need. And we also support the same markup that XPM always supported. So in order to represent type constraints, there is allowed component types array. So each item in this array corresponds to one type constraint. So here I have an example that this region, parent child, it can contain component presentations based on schema with this TCM URI and any templates. So in the UI it is corresponded to the all component templates allowed option. And occurrence constraint represented with the max occurs value. And there is also existing template building block and enable inline editing for a page. So again, when you do CM side rendering, so when you render the HTML on the CM side and generated this markup, so start region with a path to a region, then this template building block will find these markups, and it actually will write all the other properties for you. So having this path, it will find out all the other properties. So it will generate title and allowed component templates and min occurs, max occurs constraints will be generated automatically by this template building block. And yeah, as you remember, the page is a region as well, so it also can have constraints, and these constraints are added to the page settings markup in the end of page. So page ID, page modified, and other properties, they are existing properties that XPM required, and the allowed component types and max occurs as these are new for this page settings markup, and the Site9 XPM will recognize these properties and will react accordingly. Okay, the last topic that I have is the how we exposed regions in the DXA. So DXA actually, all versions of DXA have so-called component template-driven regions. So it is a special component templates that have some view region name in the title, and then some metadata in the component template itself. So this have been a workaround due to lack of native regions in the content manager. So now we have a better native implementation of the regions. So obviously we updated DXA 2.1 to benefit from these native regions. So what we did is that in the fresh new installation, there will be no this long list of component templates with 2, 3, 4 columns, for example. Instead, we'll rely on region for this. Another feature that is added to DXA is a occurrence constraint support for XPM. Again, previously DXA did not generate this max occurs markup now it is. We also have semantic mapping for region metadata. I will demonstrate how it works. And there is also a possibility to choose region view based on the region schema. So again, so some CM site hints for DXA. And the last note is that we only support CM native regions in the DXA R2 data model. So for legacy DD40 templates, they still rely on this component template driven regions. Okay, so let me show how region metadata can be used in the DXA web application. So I have a home page here, and this home page has a multi-column region. This region defines a metadata so that user can choose, page creator can choose how many columns they want to generate. So again, previously it was in the DXA 2.0 or earlier versions of DXA. For this you had to choose a different flavor of the component template. So now the component template, there is only one version of component template, let's say teaser. And in the metadata you set how many columns you want. So in this case there are 3 columns. And in order to consume this information, what implementer of the DXA web application will need to do is to define a model for this region. So this is an example of built-in module. So it maps to the multi-column region schema. So sorry. Again, here you can see that the region schema title is multi-column region. So we need to remove all the brackets and dashes and white spaces and just the alphanumeric shortened version with the multi-column region. Oops, sorry. And this what here the entity name is. And here we define number of columns int property. Again, sorry. So in the multi-column, let me open the schema itself. Metadata. So here XML name is number of columns. So the first number is a small one, but here we can use the number from capital N. DXA will map, it will find that this field should be populated with a value in the corresponding metadata field. So that's how semantic mapping works. And having this property, then in the view model, again we say that we want to use this multi-column region model, and then this model dot number of columns, this value that is populated from the CM side. So here, So page editor sets number of columns here, and it will be used in the view model on the web application. So that's how semantic mapping works. And the last couple of words on the migration scenarios. So in the fresh new setup, I can actually show how it will look like. So for example, in this list of templates, you can see that there is a shorter list of templates that go by default with the core module of the DXA. So there is no like teaser 2 column, 3 column, 4 column. There is only one, and there are some extra page templates defined because we need a bit more region schemas, and also all pages here they use by default page templates with regions enabled, and all the content is populated into correct regions. But in case of the upgrade, what we will do, we actually will create all the region schemas. We'll associate these region schemas with page templates, but on upgrade we will not touch the example site. So 400 publication will not be touched because it can be customized. We don't know all the implementation details, and we obviously do not want to break anything. So what may be done to start leveraging regions in the pages. So again, page editors will need to open the pages in CME and move component presentations to respective regions. Or if you know the structure of the page, a simple automated tool can be written that uses CoreService API to actually update all pages and to move components into respective regions. Closer to the release, I expect that we will create some demo application that probably will work on the DXA content to automatically migrate all the components from a page to the respective regions, and that script can be used on the customer side to it can be adjusted, and customer pages can be updated as well. So again, how does it work? I have already demonstrated with this page. So you open a page, you do cut copy, you do cut paste into respective regions, and then do save and close. That's all that I wanted to share. Is there any questions?
Okay, thank you, Anton, for presenting today. So thank you everyone for attending our webinar. We hope it is useful and informative to you. If you have any questions, please directly contact our speaker, Anton. So we look forward to seeing you again in one of our future webinars. So please don't forget to take a look at our link attachments where you can find more information. So thank you everyone. Have a great rest of the day. Thank you.